We are recording, and we want to welcome everyone to our Master of Athletic Training webinar today. It's January 8th, 2021. If you have any questions about the material or if you have any technical issues as we go, please put your questions or concerns in the chat, and we will address those at the end. If those questions are program related, we'll address those at the end. If they're technical issues, we'll try to get those sorted out as soon as possible. My name is Lydia Lee Nelson. I work in the graduate and online office. And our panelists today are Dr. Nathan Slaughter, Dr. Cody Bremner, and Rhiannon Vandegrift. We want to welcome them all out and thank them for their participation in our webinar today. Dr. Slaughter will be sharing a presentation. And without further ado, I'll turn the time over to the panelists to present themselves further and dive into the material for the webinar today.
Thank you. Thank you, Lydia. Appreciate this opportunity we have to talk about the Master of Athletic Training program here at Southern Utah University. So I'll go ahead and share the presentation. So as we talk about the Master of Athletic Training program today, we thought we'd start by talking a little bit about each of us as the panelists. So again, I'm Dr. Nathan Slaughter. I'm the program director for the Master of Athletic Training program. A little bit about my background, my educational background. Thought it'd be fun to throw up in here that I graduated from Roy High School, which is a little city up in northern Utah. I then am an SUU alum. I got my bachelor's degree in athletic training here at SUU. And then got my master's in education in health performance and recreation. In health physical education recreation. And then my doctorate degree from AT Still University. Some of the clinical experience that I've had before I came to this position here at SUU is I worked as a graduate assistant at Utah State, where I worked mainly with the football team and a little bit with the softball team and a couple of other sports here and there, but my main responsibility was with football. Following that, I had the opportunity to work in a couple of high schools and also a physical therapy clinic. If anybody's familiar with the Clark County, the Mesquite area in Nevada, where I'd bounce back and forth between Virgin Valley High School, Moapa Valley High School, and like I said, Mesa View Physical Therapy. After that experience, I had the opportunity to go back to the collegiate setting, where I worked at Colorado State University, where my main assignment was working with track and field and cross country, and then helping with football a little bit there. And then the last 5 years of working full-time clinically as a clinician, athletic trainer, was at Westminster College in Salt Lake, where my sports assignments and who I traveled with were men's basketball, women's soccer, and also women's lacrosse. So it's one thing I feel very fortunate to have seen a variety of settings and circumstances throughout my journey as an athletic trainer. Dr. Bremner?
All right, so as Lydia mentioned, my name is Dr. Cody Bremner, and I'm the clinical coordinator for the Masters of Athletic Training program here at SUU. A little bit about my background. I did my undergraduate as well as my first graduate degree, my master's, at UNLV just down the road, just south of SUU here. I got my bachelor's in athletic training, became a certified athletic trainer. And after I was certified, I went and did an internship for the Kansas City Royals at their spring training facility down in Surprise, Arizona. And so while there, I was able to work with a variety of different levels from low A up to AAA, even did a little bit of major league spring training, but primarily with the low A team there after the large or higher level clubs broke for camp. After my internship with the Royals in Surprise, I returned to UNLV and got my master's degree in kinesiology with an athletic training emphasis. It was there that I began teaching in athletic training programs. So that was in 2011. I started to teach some of the labs for the athletic training program there at UNLV. After graduating with my master's, my family and I moved to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, where I attended Southern Miss, or University of Southern Mississippi, and I got my PhD in kinesiology. While there, I also continued to teach athletic training courses. I've been here at SUU now since 2017, so it's my 4th year. So I've been teaching in athletic training programs since 2011 in various different states and different locations. So I believe this is about my 9th year now teaching in athletic training programs.
Brianna.
Ron. My name is Rhiannon Vandegrift. I am a 2nd year student in the MAT program. A little bit about me. I am originally from Nebraska, but I did all of my schooling up north. In northern Utah, I graduated from Viewmont High School in Davis County. And following that, I came to SUU. I did receive an Associate's of Science here. And then I did get my Bachelor's of Science in Exercise Science following my Associate's. And then now I am rounding out my education here with my Master's of Athletic Training. So if that doesn't tell you how great of a school SUU is for me to literally get 3 degrees here, then I can't really say what else is. Some things that I have done throughout the program and that have just stood out to me that I wanted to share with you guys is that I was actually the very first admit into the program. I went through the application program by myself, figuring out as I went. It was a fun experience, challenging at times, but completely worth it now that I'm in 2nd year. I absolutely love it. I've also been given the opportunity to be a part of the Utah Athletic Training Association Student Committee. I am currently the vice president of the committee, and we are working on some great things for this upcoming year. I was also allowed the opportunity to become an adjunct instructor here. So I teach racquetball courses as well as the undergraduate taping labs that we do for exercise science students. And I absolutely love it. It is a phenomenal experience. It's definitely allowed me to look into a different side of athletic training and to teach new clinicians, which is amazing. Another thing that I've absolutely loved here as well has been traveling with the SU football team. I was actually just assigned to be with football for my last semester here, and hopefully we will be traveling some more. And it's just been an amazing experience. And if anyone has any questions, again, I'd be more than happy to answer any. And then off to the side, I did also include just some of my clinical sites that I have been in while or been placed at while I've been in the program. We'll go over those a little bit later, but I just wanted to show you guys that you do get a lot of diversity in where we are put here, and it's great.
Thank you, Rhiannon. Thank you, Dr. Bremner. So as we start talking about the athletic training program, one of the first things that we want to mention here is that we are a CATI accredited program, which means that students can come here having the confidence that when they go through the program, if they obviously go through, they pass classes, all those things, that they will be eligible to sit for the board of certification exam, and then therefore pass that and become a certified athletic trainer. So that's one of those things that just kind of don't have to worry about that. We are an accredited program from the CATI. So a little more about the program, how it's set up a little bit. The total amount of credits you'll be taking as part of the Masters of Athletic Training program is 56 credits. Like I mentioned, the CATI, they require that we teach a lot of things. There's a lot to know about athletic training. And so it does take a few classes to get through that. How that works is we have one entry point into the athletic training program. So you go through and matriculate through the program as a cohort. So Rhiannon and the rest of her cohort, they get to know each other quite well. And they usually have pretty good relationships, and they enjoy those opportunities when they're in class and develop those friendships and those bonds, which is a great thing. So anyway, the entry point that we have is summer second session. At SUU, semesters are divided up into first session and second session, if you don't take the whole one. And so to get all the information, we have students start summer second session, which is generally around the first part of July, give and take a few days here and there. And we kind of start off with just 7 credits. Just kind of a brief introduction to a few things, just enough to kind of get you started, to when you'll then also have a little bit of clinical experiences. We generally refer that to fall camp under non-COVID times for the most part, like football, volleyball, soccer, those kinds of things going on, to get you to start getting your feet wet a little bit there. Your first full semester classes is in the fall. And this is also something that really separates our athletic training program from, to my knowledge, just about every other athletic training program in the country. I haven't done extensive search and to know that that's for sure, but I don't know that there's too many others where we take a little bit more of what we refer to as a medical model. So I mentioned those 2 sessions. So your first year here, so the first 7 weeks of the semester, which is session 1, you take 12 credits of courses. We start to learn things didactically in the classroom with your instructors. And then at the end of those 7 weeks, you start your second session here, and that's where you're all clinical experiences. So we want you to, when you're in class, you focus on your class and your coursework. But then when you have your opportunity to be in the clinical sites, that you really have the opportunity to experience as much of that clinical education as possible. Historically, it's common where you'll see programs where students will take classes in the mornings throughout the semester and then do maybe some clinical stuff, practices and stuff in the afternoons and evenings, which is great, and it's been done in a lot of places, but they miss out on a lot of educational opportunities like meetings, rehabilitation, maybe doctor's visits, just learning how more things work with athletic training other than just kind of what I've referred to as the Friday night lights. And so we really feel that's a great a setup. We're really enjoying it. The feedback we're getting from our students is that it's been a positive experience for them thus far. So that's the first session and the second session. And then your first spring, they'll repeat that same pattern where the first session they'll have the coursework here, and then the second 7 weeks they'll do the clinical experiences. So then that brings us to the summer. Number 2 again starts second session, so you do get a little bit of a summer break there. Again, so this one's only 3 credits of coursework and then some clinical experiences there in the summer. And then in your second fall, you'll notice the order switches. So Brianna mentioned how she's a second-year master's student. So the second fall, you actually have your clinical experiences first, and then you have your coursework. And this does a couple of things where I think it also helps, and Brianna can verify this or not, but it probably opens up more experiences that first session here for the first years, because not everything's just always defaulted to those second-year students. And so it opens up some more options for both your first year and your second year athletic training students. And then lastly, in your last spring, again, you'll have your clinical experiences, and then you'll have your coursework, just 10 credits, and that's where we are mostly finishing up your master's thesis, your applied research project that'll be a part of it, and then just making sure you're ready to go pass those the board certification exam. So that's a little bit of as far as the structure of the curriculum and the layout of how you would advance and matriculate through the program. One thing on here is, as far as because of space and various things that we admit up to about 15 students per year, so per cohort. So that's how that matriculates through. Anything to add with that, Dr. Bremner, or Brianna, if you, at any point I forget something, feel free to chime in here. So as we work through our mission requirements, this is one where there's a lot of writing on this side here. The main things are basically that you've completed a bachelor's degree, you have a 3.0, and also in the program you're required to maintain at least a 3.0 GPA. If you have that 3.0 GPA throughout your undergraduate coursework, you really don't have to take the GRE. One of the key things here is that all the applications are submitted through what is a software program or website that's called ATCAS. ATCAS is the Athletic Training Central Application System. It's similar to others like PT and OT and all, a variety of other allied healthcare programs use. It makes things very simple for applicants. They can see a variety of programs that offer athletic training. But anyway, and so you submit all your application materials through that website, and then that way you take care of it there, and you don't have to do a separate application for every program that you are interested in, that you want to apply to. It's more just a quick click of the button, and then we get the application information. And there's not a separate process just for Southern Utah University. And we also do not charge a separate application fee. There's a small fee associated with ATCAS for each program that you apply to, and we don't require anything above and beyond that ATCAS application fee. You'll have a letter of application, a couple of letters of recommendation. We prefer at least one of those to be from a professor or instructor that you've had at the collegiate level, and then also from a practicing certified athletic trainer. Also, you'll do a program interview, and we prefer on campus, but if you're not on campus or distance or it's difficult to get to or anything like that, we can and have, and we'll continue to do some via video conference. We'll take advantage a little bit of technology where we can. As far as another one of the requirements is the documentation of at least 50 hours of observation with a certified athletic trainer. And usually one of the reason for this, when I talk with a lot of students about the reason why we have this requirement, is we really want to make sure that and give students every opportunity that this is what athletic training is what they want to do. We wouldn't want a student to start spending that much time and money in tuition at the graduate level to then find out, you know what, maybe this isn't what I wanted to do. And so we're like, well, maybe if we have them do 50 hours of observation with an athletic trainer, they can start to get a feel for what athletic training is, a little bit of what their daily schedule's like, and those kinds of things. And that's really the spirit behind that requirement right there. If there's anybody for this current application cycle, if anybody's watching this webinar and they're still looking at programs, looking at possibly entering and applying for the fall or summer 2021 cohort, that's the observation hours, because of COVID and the limited opportunities to get observation hours at various sites. Since it's been so limited, we have waived that requirement for this application cycle. And that's also because of that, it might be a little bit more difficult for one of the currently practicing to get a letter of recommendation from a currently practicing athletic trainer. So if possible, great, we'd love to have it, love to see that, but it's not a requirement for this 2021 cohort for this application cycle. Hopefully soon we'll get through this pandemic, and those opportunities will be available for for everyone interested. The last few requirements there are just things that were required to require of students, but they don't have to be done until after you've gone through the first 10 steps of the application process. Excuse me. And you've had that interview, and you've been accepted into the program. And then last few things we have to have you do is the immunizations, the drug test, background check, and so on and so forth. So, so that's a little bit about the admission requirements. Anything from the other two about admission requirements?
Might look like a long list, but it is very doable. Very doable.
That does like a little bit of a big hill to climb, but it's not too bad. And again, it's pretty much on par with just about every other athletic training program. Prerequisite coursework, I get a lot of questions about what classes need to be taken. So here's a list of courses that you need to take before you're actually enrolled and you start the Masters of Athletic Training program. Similar to how on the previous slide, maybe there goes, a completed bachelor's degree. That doesn't have to be completed before you can apply for the program. A lot of times the application process opens up in the fall. So we started application process this last September, and it's open through the spring for the 2021 cohort. So you don't have to have that completed, just have to have it completed before you actually start the courses in the Masters of Athletic Training program. And that's similar with these prerequisite coursework. It's great if you have them all completed before application. That's one less thing you have to worry about. But as long as those classes are completed before you actually start the MAT program. Common questions I get is, so these numbers here, these are just simply SUU course equivalents. Kind of like if this was the ideal student going through SUU's undergraduate program. These are the courses that we recommend that you take. But if it's a physics, if it's a chemistry, then it doesn't necessarily have to be these ones. But you do have to have a background in physics and chemistry and biology. But obviously those numbers are not going to be the same at every institution that you might be attending. Anything else on prerequisites? Okay, now I'm going to turn some time over to Dr. Bremner for some information about our clinical settings.
All right, so as Brianna mentioned and demonstrated that we have a lot of opportunities here at SUU, despite the fact that we're a smaller university and that Cedar City is a smaller town. We do have a lot of relationships within the community as well as here at the university that allow for many opportunities. So you can see a number of pictures here, current sites that we utilize. We have men's and women's basketball here at SUU. We have women's volleyball and women's soccer. We also have women's gymnastics. We got track and cross country, as well as softball. In addition, we have 3 local high schools that are all within 15 minutes of the university. We have Cedar High, Canyon View High, and Parowan High, and we will assign our students to those high schools. One of our preceptors in a previous meeting earlier this week really highlighted that that's fairly unique as well across athletic training programs. A lot of them are in larger towns and require a lot of travel. For example, when I went to UNLV, I was telling Dr. Slaughter earlier today, I had a rotation that I had to travel an hour both ways, so an hour to and an hour back. All of our rotations are here close by, with Parowan High really being the further one away. We've got some new ones up and going as well. You'll see Mountain Eye Institute there. We have a rotation at Mountain Eye Institute, as well as Cedar Dermatology that will be starting this upcoming semester. Rhiannon will actually be going to both of those. We also have a relationship with the emergency room here in Cedar City, where we try to get our students to rotate through there. So you can see that we have a variety of options. The way in which this works, while our students are here, we really want to expose them to as many different settings and as many different preceptors and as many different ways of thoughts as we can. And so if you were to come to our program, you would be rotated through a number of these. The way rotations are decided, ultimately myself and Dr. Slaughter will get together and make the decisions, but we do also consult with students. Rhiannon can tell you, we generally will ask for some input, especially as you advance and get into your second year in the program. We'll ask for certain rotations that you might desire or might want, and we will take those into consideration when making those decisions. But ultimately, we make the decision based upon the educational experience for each student. Where do we feel that they need to grow the most? Where do we feel that the preceptor will be a best fit for them? Another thing that we also have to take into consideration are the CATIE requirements. There are a number of accreditation standards that require that you're exposed to a variety of different conditions, a variety of different patient populations. And so we also have to make sure during your 2 years here that you've been exposed to all of those as well. So I would say you get a very broad mixture of opportunities. Another advantage of our clinical settings that I'd like to point out is, although we are a Division I university, we're a smaller Division I university. And most athletic trainers, if you would talk to them, or athletic training students, it seems to be the higher the division or the larger the university, the less hands-on experiences our students get. If you were to go to a very large university with an athletics program that is considered quote unquote prestigious, oftentimes those athletes and those coaches are much more resistant to letting students get hands-on experience and to actually get those for themselves. Where here at SUU, our student athletes, our preceptors, as well as the high schools and the doctors are very open to allowing students to get hands-on experiences and really look at you as an individual rather than just a student.
Okay, thanks. Brianna, would you like to add anything else about clinical settings or anything to add before we open it up to questions?
Yeah, just piggybacking off of Cody, I've had an incredible time at all of my clinical sites, including the high schools, which I did not think that I would enjoy as much as I did, but our preceptors at every clinical site are absolutely incredible. They really all want to see you succeed as much as possible. They will challenge you clinically. They will challenge you in every way possible, but it is because of the quality of the education that we get here that they know that we can do it. So that's another thing, that you will always be put to the test, but they will also never push your limits. They won't push you beyond something that you are uncomfortable with. You do have a meeting with your preceptors before you begin every clinical site or clinical rotation, where you talk about the classes that you've taken. You've talked about your strengths, your weaknesses, things that you personally want to work on, things that they may be able to help you with. And if you tell them, I'm really struggling with this concept, can we work on this? They will do simulations with you. They will never put you in a situation where you are uncomfortable or where someone may become injured or for any reason that it's just not a good position. That will never happen. That is completely off the table. Our preceptors here are very respectful and very knowledgeable. And like I said, I've absolutely loved every single rotation that I've been at. So.
Thank you. Okay. I guess one more thing I'll share, since there's a picture here before we open it up to questions. Try to get a little bit better picture here, but I think something that's also very unique is the dedicated lab space that we have for the Masters of Athletic Training program here. Rhiannon could probably tell you about it, how they spend when the time they're in courses and classes, they'll spend a lot of time here in this lab right here. This is where all the classes are taught. But because there's time when you're between classes and no one's in there teaching, And it's been fun to see the students kind of still hang out in this lab space where they can practice a variety of skills, whether it's evaluations, whether they're studying, maybe it's their taping, maybe it's doing sutures or some of those kinds of things that they can really have this space to study and just have a lot of things at their fingertips during those 7 weeks when they're during their coursework. So anyway, with that, I think we're good to open it up to any questions that anyone might have.
Perfect. Thank you all for presenting that information. As of now, we don't have any questions open in the chat. So for our attendees, please go ahead and put any questions you have and we can address those. But in the meantime, we do have some regularly asked questions prepared that we want to present to our panelists. This first one might be a good one for Rhiannon. What is it like working hands-on with athletes as an athletic training student? And what kinds of things are you allowed to do in the athletic training facility as an athletic training student?
Yes. Being an athletic training student at SUU is, like I said multiple times now, it's awesome. Working with student athletes is another thing that I have immensely appreciated in this program. Like Dr. Slaughter touched on earlier, if I was at a bigger institution, there is practically no way that I would have had any hands-on experience with the athletes. Whereas here, I've been lucky enough to do evaluations. I have felt positive ACL tests. I have felt a shoulder dislocation. I've even assisted in reducing finger dislocations. And that is something that you don't really get at other institutions, as well as just creating the relationships with the student athletes. I myself am a very social person, so I do thrive in the clinic with the athletes. But it's great to be out there and to be someone that these athletes know that they can trust and that they can feel confident going up to. Obviously, when they're hurt is awesome. It's an amazing feeling, as well as developing these interpersonal relationships with them. Because another part of athletic training that sometimes gets looked over is you become a mentor to these athletes. And as a student, they also feel as though they can relate to you a little bit more as well. And they will come and talk to you about things, even if it's just their day that maybe they struggled in their class. And I get a lot of exercise science students asking me questions all the time because that's what my undergrad was, as well as those undergrad students that take Dr. Slaughter's classes. Like I said, I'm a taping instructor, so they come to me, ask questions about that. So working with the student athletes is awesome. I absolutely love it. Some of them are my closest friends now, honestly. It's great. And then as far as things that I can do in the athletic training facilities that we have, again, that just boils down to that meeting that you have at the beginning of the semester or of your clinical site with your preceptor on what you feel comfortable with, the classes you've taken, as well as your certifications that you have. For example, I've been with football, and our preceptor there, his name is Nate Lauer. And at the beginning of my rotation in the summer, something that he asked me again was just, what do I feel comfortable with, or where are gaps in my knowledge, things that I want to improve on. And we had yet to have our upper clinical course that is the lab. So you have the course and then you'll have a lab associated with it where you really hone in your skills. You practice all your special tests, you practice everything, you practice your evaluation skills. And I hadn't had that course yet. And I told him upper eval is something that I really want to work on and get really good at. And so anytime there was an upper eval, he said, okay, Rhiannon, let's walk through this. Let's do it together. He knew it was a place that I perhaps need a little bit of help, and he would help me throughout the evaluation to a point where I felt comfortable enough to now, having taken that course, I feel like I can lead those evaluations by myself. with him there, of course, but then relay my findings to him, which is great. And that is something that you will develop with your athletes, again, is that patient rapport. Whereas there are situations where an athlete is scared when they're injured. And a lot of the times they want someone who knows what they're doing. And that's really what we get set up for in our academic courses that we then disclose to our preceptor, and then they will then allow us to practice those skills that we have been taught. Another good example is our modalities course that Dr. Bremner teaches. This fall, I took our lab course for that, and now you bet I'm using all of the modalities that I can. eStim, I'm a master at now, which Dr. Bremner can attest to. But the different massage techniques, so much that you just learn and you just really hone in those skills. And then once you're out there and you feel confident and you relay that to your preceptor, you, I don't want to say are given free reign, but perhaps you show them once, twice, maybe 3 times that you can do this skill. And then from then on, you're good to go. And they trust you to do that. And the athlete trusts you to do that as well. So it's just a matter of relaying what you can do and then just going for it, which is great.
Very cool. Thanks so much, Rhiannon, for your great response. We had a question come through in the chat. It says, I know BYU has an integrated program for MAT. Will SUU ever do anything like that?
So thank you for that question. So if I understand the question correctly, as far as integrated, there are some programs that integrate things as far as the undergraduate and the master's program, where they'll do something called a 3+2, something that, if that's what they're talking about. I don't know how much, I guess you could say we kind of do that at SUU. The accrediting body, like we talked about at the beginning, states that the professional program, the education that you get, the clinical experiences that you get, they have to span over 2 years. So if there's an institution that's doing a 3+2, then it's a little tricky how they're working that in, a little bit integrating that a little bit. And SUU, we do have a program where you can get your undergraduate degree in 3 years. And so you could kind of look at it that way, but it's not necessarily an integrated where you take some classes at the undergraduate and then, or you take some classes at the graduate level and they count in both places. And so I don't know at this point if we'll be looking at something like that. But you can at SUU do your undergraduate degree in 3 years, and then the 2-year span of the Masters of Athletic Training program. At least that's how I interpret that question. Dr. Bremner, did you interpret that a different way? You're on mute, Dr. Bremner.
Yeah, trying to be quiet here. That's the way I understood it. But if that didn't answer your question, please put in the chat that it didn't answer it, and we'll be happy to try to better answer that. But yeah, I believe that's what they were talking about.
Certainly. Thank you both. We have another question, well, another few questions in our chat, and thank you for the questions coming through. Please feel free to continue to put those questions in. This question is regarding tuition. Can you touch on how much in-state and out-of-state tuition are? And to tag on to that, are there any additional costs, and what are they besides tuition in the program?
Okay, I'll take that one a little bit. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head. Naturally, out-of-state tuition is a little bit more. I want to say it's roughly in the ballpark, if you're to take it per semester, some around $12,000, $13,000 a semester, I believe. That's obviously something that we don't control. However, when it does come to cost, I think a lot of people, I know, so I have a daughter who's currently a senior at Cedar High School, and she's kind of going through the college process, the recruitment process, and she's figuring out just how how cheap Utah tuition is compared to a lot of schools across the country. There are a lot of schools across the country where our out-of-state tuition at Southern Utah University is as cheap as, if not cheaper than, their in-state tuition. But I want to say roughly and it depends on the credit hours, obviously, but I want to say you'd probably average, I guess average through the 6 semesters, you probably average about 9,000-10,000 a semester. Because again, there's a little bit of variability there, depending on how many credits you're taking that particular semester. I believe the second question was, when is the last day to apply? So we have what's called a rolling admission. So I mentioned earlier how the application cycle technically opens in about September. So September of 2020 or August 2020, it opened up for those students who wanted to apply and start the MAT program in summer of 2021. And so through the cycle, we have had applicants, we have interviewed, and we have already admitted a number of students for this current cycle. And we'll just kind of keep rolling through those until all spots are filled. I guess if you're the technical last day is, around the end of April, to maybe just because it gets to a point where it's not logistically possible to get someone through that full process and integrate it before classes start that summer second session. I think the third part of that was a question about a biology pre-med.
How can they transition to an MAT?
And how to transition to an MAT program. So that's a great question. So it doesn't really matter what your bachelor's degree is in. You can be pre-med, you can be communications, you can be a dance major. The thing that you have as you do that, as long as you have the prerequisite courses, as again were stated earlier, and they're on our website, as long as you complete those prerequisites and you'll have that bachelor's degree, then you can go ahead and transition to the MAT program.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Slaughter. And thank you also, Dr. Bremner, for putting a link to the tuition table there. That link will be a great resource to see both in-state and out-of-state tuition rates for the MAT program. So we'll wait for some more questions to come through. We did have another one we wanted to ask before signing off. This also goes along with tuition. Are there any tuition waivers or scholarships for the program that are available?
I guess I'll go ahead and take that one as well. We do have some tuition waivers available without getting into the nuances between a scholarship and a tuition waiver, but we do have some tuition waivers available. Again, also on the MAT website, you can see how to apply for those waivers. We have a couple of $1,000 waivers that we can award a variety of students. So there are some, and there's an application process for those.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Slaughter. While we wait for any other questions to come through, maybe we can jump to the last slide. This has Dr. Slaughter's contact information. So if anyone watching has further questions or concerns, here's that contact information.
I just wanted to put it out there as well. Dr. Slaughter, I'm giving you permission that if anyone reaches out to you wanting to ask me any questions, my phone number, my email, you have that. You're more than welcome to give it out. I know I wish that I could have had somebody to talk to who had been through it while I was going through the application. So if anyone wants to reach out to Dr. Slaughter and get my email or anything like that, you're more than welcome to do that as well.
Thank you, Brianna.
Perfect. Dr. Slaughter, did you want to wait any longer for any more questions, or did any of the other panelists have anything else to add before we close this webinar? We do. Go
What's
ahead,
that?
Dr. Slaughter. We had one more question come through, but I think I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I've got another question come through. Let's go ahead and look at that question.
Perfect. So this one says, do you all compare classes? Meaning my undergrad may call them one, but you may call it something different. I think this maybe, and Dr. Slaughter, this can go to you, but we had a slide earlier with some of the SUU course numbers. That is maybe what they're called, the SUU. What else would you say to that, Dr. Slaughter?
I would say, yeah, so through the AT-CAS system, you actually have you upload your transcripts, and you actually kind of go through and say, all right, so the prereq says physics, and then the applicant will say, all right, here's my transcript, and here's a class that I think fits this prerequisite. And so we will actually look at that, and it kind of gives a description of the course. And so yeah, we'll look at all of them, but then each applicant has an opportunity to say, all right, this is what the prerequisite's asking for, and this is the class that I've taken that I feel meets this prerequisite, and we'll take a look at that. Obviously, as we look through the full transcript as well. So like we mentioned, it doesn't have to be that same title number or same listing number or anything like that. We will take a look at the transcript, but just also know that you as the applicant have an opportunity to say, all right, here's what you're asking for. Here's a class that I've taken that I feel meets this this prerequisite. I hope that answers the question that was asked.
Thank you. Okay, she says it does. Any thoughts from any of our other panelists before we close?
I will say just one thing. Sorry, I'm talking a lot, but I believe that I was in the same situation as a lot of you guys are right now. Back when I was looking at programs, obviously SUU was easy for me to do. My undergrad fulfilled a lot of the prerequisites. I only had to take maybe 1 or 2 additional classes to get them all done, and I was able to do that my senior year fall semester, so it was really easy for me. But just the faculty of the program, as well as the preceptors and the opportunities that we were given, really made this program stand out to me. And I am incredibly grateful that I came here. I'm almost done, so I'm going to be sad to be leaving the program. But something that Dr. Slaughter touched on a little bit earlier was the relationships that you build within your cohort, as well as with the other students that are in the program. The first years this year, we talk every week. One of them has become a very close friend of mine. The other student that is in my cohort, we know that we have a very limited time left together, and we are both very sad, disheartened by it. We don't want to leave, but I know that she is someone that I will have a lifelong friendship with. And that is something that is kind of instilled with you in this program. You go through a lot together, honestly. There are hard days, there are very fun days. Like Dr. Slaughter said, Friday Night Lights, that's an unbelievable feeling. But you really do develop great relationships with the people that you have the opportunity to meet here. And I think that's an irreplaceable experience. So there's that.
Thanks, Rhiannon. Okay, Dr. Slaughter, if it's all right with you, then I think we'll close this webinar. There will be a recording of this webinar available in just a few days, maybe a week or 2 out. And so maybe we can post that somewhere, Dr. Slaughter, for it to be found. Or if you reach out to Dr. Slaughter, I'm sure he can send it to you. So with that being perfect. All right, well, thank you again. We want to thank all the panelists, everyone who attended. This is a great program. This is a great university, and thanks for spending your hour with us today.
Thank you.